Hello everyone and welcome to Ecosistant. Fragrances play a central role in cosmetic products, but their use is subject to strict regulatory oversight to ensure consumer safety. Within the European Union, fragrance ingredients are regulated both through binding legal requirements and through industry-driven standards that together define how substances may be assessed, restricted, labeled and monitored. Against the backdrop of evolving scientific knowledge and growing awareness of allergic and sensitizing effects, these rules are regularly updated and expanded. This video provides an overview of the regulatory framework governing fragrance safety in cosmetics, with a particular focus on recent developments, the role of industry standards, and the practical implications for manufacturers and other economic operators. We are supported in this by our partners at Taobé Consulting. Taobé is a consulting firm specializing in cosmetics law that has been helping beauty brands bring their products to market safely and in compliance with the law in Europe and the UK since 2017. Alright, let's roll the intro and have a look at this. Let's start with the basics. Like all cosmetics, fragrances are regulated by specific rules to ensure their safety. Perfume is used within a cosmetic product, which is defined under Regulation 1223/2009. As such, it is subject to various obligations regarding its content, the packaging in which it is marketed, and the documentation required to be available to authorities in the form of a Product Information File or PIF. Additionally, the initial version of the regulation mandated that the responsible person declare 26 ingredients in fragrance compositions in the ingredient list if their concentration exceeded specific thresholds. Recently, this list was expanded by Regulation 1545/2023, which amends the cosmetics regulation to include an additional 56 allergens. Further assurances of fragrance safety in cosmetics come from the IFRA code, which is the International Fragrance Association, and standards which member perfumers must follow. For instance, the IFRA code specifies the maximum allowable quantity of a given component in a cosmetic product. Okay, let's see what the IFRA is and does. The International Fragrance Association, in short IFRA, founded in 1973, is the official self-regulatory body representing the fragrance industry worldwide. IFRA represents manufacturers and preparers of fragrance ingredients. Its purpose is to promote and ensure the safety of products in the fragrance industry through risk assessments conducted by an independent expert panel. What is the role of the IFRA? The role of the IFRA is to evaluate data on fragrance ingredients to ensure they pose no risk to consumers. If a safety assessment conducted does not support current use, the scientific panel on the Research Institute for Fragrance Materials, also known as RIFM, requires the IFRA to issue a standard. This standard may restrict, prohibit, or provide additional instructions for the use of the ingredient. When safety concerns regarding a specific ingredient are identified by RIFM, the IFRA issues an IFRA standard as part of an amendment. These standards may prohibit or restrict the use of a certain ingredient or establish purity requirements for them. IFRA standards and related documents are subject to periodic updates when new safety information becomes available. These updates, known as IFRA amendments, undergo extensive consultation with all interested parties before being finalized. The development of IFRA standards involves collaboration between IFRA, RIFM, and the expert panel. Currently, the 51st revision of the IFRA standards is in force. This new amendment introduces changes to the restrictions of 11 perfume ingredients and adds 48 new ingredients to the list of regulated substances. What has changed in the course of the last amendment regarding fragrance safety in cosmetics? As an example, here are the changes that occurred between the 50th and the 51st revisions to illustrate how the standard is updated between revisions. New standards. One new IFRA restriction specification standard. 32 new IFRA restriction standards to control potential dermal sensitization effects, for which the systemic toxicity endpoints have also been evaluated. 11 new IFRA restriction standards to control potential dermal sensitization effects based solely on QRA2. 2 new IFRA restriction standards for which risk management is based on threshold of toxicological concern or TTC. 1 new IFRA restriction standard due to potential of depigmentation of creasoles, and 1 new IFRA prohibition standard due to potential genotoxicity effects for this one. And revised standards: 7 revised IFRA restriction standards to control potential dermal sensitization effects, for which the systemic toxicity endpoints have now also been evaluated. 1 revised IFRA restriction standard based on new dermal sensitization data, 1 revised IFRA restriction standard based on phototoxicity and systemic toxicity, and 1 updated standard with regard to MAC in category 6, 2 revised IFRA restriction standards based on systemic toxicity, and some minor updates to existing standards and format change. One of the consequences of IFRA 51 is the new approach concerning phototoxic ingredients. This approach now includes setting limits for rinse-off products in categories 7A, 9 and 10A. Specifically, this change has been implemented for MNMA. Furthermore, the Fragrance Safety Expert Group has determined that products in category 6 can now be classified as rinse-off products in terms of phototoxicity. Consequently, the allowed concentration of MNMA in category 6 products has increased from 0.1% to 0.5% as compared to the previous consultation. What is the transition period? A grace period starting from the release date of June 30th, 2023 has been established based on 4 scenarios. These scenarios depend on the current presence of the related product in the market and whether the fragrance is prohibited or restricted. If the fragrance is created after the 51st Amendment notification and your raw material contains a future prohibited ingredient, you would have had 2 months to be compliant with this new amendment, which was August 30th, 2023. If the fragrance is created after the 51st Amendment notification and your perfume does not contain prohibited ingredients but contains restricted ingredients or ingredients with specifications, you would have had 9 months until March 30th, 2024. If the fragrance is already on the market before 51st Amendment notification and your raw material contains a future prohibited ingredient, you would have 13 months to be compliant with this new amendment, until July 30th, 2024. And if the fragrance is already on the market before the 51st Amendment notification and your perfume does not contain prohibited ingredients but contains restricted ingredients or ingredients with specifications, you would have 28 months until October 30th, 2025. New rules on the labeling of allergenic substances in cosmetics. More than a decade after the opinion of the Scientific Committee for Consumer Safety, a new regulation has come into force, as we mentioned in the beginning. The regulation introduces substantial changes to the labeling of allergenic substances in cosmetic products. This regulation, 2023-1545, issued on July 26, 2023 and published in the Official Journal of the European Union on July 27, 2023, updates Regulation 1223/2009 of the European Parliament and of the Council. The update specifically focuses on the labeling of allergenic fragrances in cosmetic products. The primary purpose of this revision is to ensure compliance with safety criteria and to protect consumers' health. The new regulation takes into account that the percentage of individuals allergic to allergenic fragrances in the European Union is estimated to range between 1 and 9%. Contact allergies are specific immune reactions that persist throughout life. Repeated exposure to enough of an allergen can trigger allergic contact dermatitis, better known as eczema. If you have a history of sensitization to an allergen, even small amounts can cause allergic symptoms. A restriction on the use of allergenic fragrances may be an option for primary prevention. However, sensitized individuals may experience allergic reactions even at concentrations lower than the permissible maximums. Therefore, in order to sensitize people to avoid contact with triggers, it is essential to provide information about the potential presence of allergenic fragrances in cosmetic products. Fragrances are organic compounds widely used in perfumes and other cosmetic items, but also in detergents, fabric softeners, and other household products. It should be noted that the rules governing cosmetic products also extend to products for domestic use. At present, the list of ingredients must specify precisely 26 allergenic fragrances listed in entries 45 and 67 to 92 of Annex 3 to Regulation 1223/2009. In response to the Commission's request to revise the list of allergenic fragrances for individual labeling, the Scientific Committee on Consumer Safety, or SCCS, issued an opinion in June 2012. This opinion validated the relevance of the fragrances already listed and added a further 56 that caused human allergies, even though they had not previously been subject to the individual labeling requirement. Our partners at Taobé have discussed this in an article describing this extension of the Allergens list. You can find the link to the article in the video description. On the basis of this opinion, and in order to address the potential risk to public health, the Commission has decided to inform consumers about the presence of these new allergenic fragrances. As a result, Annex 3 to Regulation 1223/2009 has been updated, requiring the individual labeling of those allergenic fragrances when their concentration exceeds 0.001% in leave-on products and 0.01% in rinse-off products by July 31st, 2026 for new products placed on the market, and by July 31st, 2028 for products made available on the market. Similarly, the same regulatory standards and requirements have been applied to fragrances such as preaptants and proaptants, which can be transformed into contact allergens via oxidation or bioactivation. These substances are now treated in the same way as allergenic fragrances. In order to improve the clarity and consistency of the rules, changes have been made to the existing entries in Annex 3, aligning the names of the substances with those of the latest version of COSING and grouping similar substances under a single heading. In the case of several common names for a substance, the label will use a specific name given in the list of ingredients in Article 19(1)(g) in order to simplify the labeling and make it more comprehensible to consumers and economic operators. The update of Annex 3 also includes the revision of the existing entries related to allergenic fragrances, including the updating of isomers and modification of their CAS and EC numbers. These amendments aim to simplify the work of economic operators and national authorities. Okay, let's see the conclusion. There are various regulations and guidelines from different bodies and associations that oversee the safety of fragrances and consequently of finished cosmetic products. As a result, several documents must be considered and carefully examined. So if you need help evaluating your cosmetic product, contact our partner Taobé Consulting directly and check your product compliance together. You'll find the link in the video description, and of course a big thank you to Taobé for their cooperation and expert support. That's it for today. See you soon.